Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today for our Little Italy of Los Angeles podcast. So excited to welcome the VP of Operations of one of my favorite all-time restaurants, Il Fornaio, Frank Licata. Thanks so much for being here, Frank.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, we should be having lunch, right? We should have had a plate of
Hey,
pasta before us, but that'll come next time, right, Frank?
I would absolutely love that.
Yeah. So, wow, to become you're such a successful guy in the business, but you had a long road to getting there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that because, as we spoke about, I like to know someone's past because it really determines who they are today.
Right.
Um, so first, though, Il Fornaio, for people who have not been to your restaurants, what makes Il Fornaio different in terms of an Italian restaurant than so many others that are out there?
Well, we have chefs in every one of our restaurants, and really our number one point of distinction, Deborah, and we're very proud of this, is our people. We have
Ah,
many employees that have been with us for 20, 25, 30 years and have constantly been supporting the brand and making the brand strong. I mean, it's not very often you have brands 30 some years old still as strong as we have been. And we're very excited about that. But it all comes down to one thing, the quality of our people.
oh, and wonderful. And the quality of your food.
Yes.
You've got 19 restaurants, 17
Yes.
of them are here in California, two of them in Las Vegas. And when I first came to Los Angeles, it was one of the first restaurants that I went to, the one in Beverly Hills. And you're right. The same people there, they're wonderful, they're kind. They always knew our names when we walked in the door. But I like to describe your food as clean, just clean. Um, and I love that because I could taste the different layers of the ingredients in it because it's so fresh. Maybe that's a better word, fresh. Wouldn't you say?
Well, everything comes in the back door in its original state. Nothing is
Ah,
purchased. We make all of our own sauces. All of our produce comes in regularly, a daily basis. We get produce delivery 6 days a week. So fresh and quality is what we're all about. But once again, the reason why it's so good is because the people that are producing this fresh quality product are so committed and strong. And I was just in
that's
Beverly Hills last night, and it's truly amazing that a restaurant that's been around about 40 years is still so strong. And guests were walking up to me saying, I don't know how you guys do it. You're outside and we are so comfortable. And me, I was freezing all night long. And guests are sitting having dinner and praising the fact that they're sitting on a sidewalk eating our food. But it's a testament to the quality of the people that make that happen every day. I mean, we're
you
so
know.
blessed. I'm sorry.
No, 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 it's okay. One of my favorite meals or dishes there is the pounded chicken with the spinach on top. Now, I asked you, do you still have that there? Because that's really been one of my favorites. Like I said, it's very clean, it's simple, and it's the way I remember that my grandmother used to make it too.
Well, we have a few dishes that are chicken. We have a petto de polo, which is a
Yeah.
spicy chicken. And then we have our rotisserie chicken, that's polo toscano. And that we rotisserie the chicken every day, twice a day. And it's just a quality, fresh product. And then we use that for many different things, salads, etc., pastas. So it's just a great product. We're very proud of that.
The type of Italian food is from what region in particular in Italy, would you say?
Well, it's a Tuscan-driven menu, but we
Hmm.
specialize in focusing on all the different regions of Italy. So we haven't done it this year because of the pandemic, but every year we had a regionale, and we would center on a specific Campania, Sicily, Tuscany, Emilia Romagna, and we many of our chefs come from that region. So our
Hmm.
executive pull a menu together focused on that specific region, and we'll run it for 2 weeks a month.
Oh,
And it's just we've been doing it for 25 years, and we've backed off a little bit just because of labor issues and trying to expedite that with a smaller skeleton crew during the pandemic. But for the most part, our focus is always the quality regional cuisine, authentic from each different region. But our menu is Tuscan driven.
I know it's been difficult during COVID. You've got 1,800 total employees. That's a lot of people. And I asked you earlier, how many of them are open? To which case you told me,
Well, we have all except two, well, really one and a half. We have one restaurant in Palo Alto that isn't open because of construction. And then we have a restaurant that sits on Capitol Way in Sacramento that is only open in a retail. We have a panateria in the building to facilitate people having something to eat that are in the offices above. But all
that's
the other,
pretty outstanding. Yeah, it's pretty outstanding. You've managed to pivot. So, during the pandemic, like so many others, right? You have to find the outdoor space, figure it out, get the heaters going, make sure everybody's spaced out. That's got to be, properly with at least 6 feet. That's a lot, right?
well, it's not what it used to be, but you know what, Deborah, we have no choice. So we're happy to do it.
Oh,
Yesterday
of
we
course.
lost indoor dining in San Diego, and I was on a conference call earlier today how we're going to handle that through Thanksgiving, and we have some restaurants with over 300 reservations
Oh,
for
wow.
Thanksgiving, and now I don't have interior. So
Hmm.
we're trying to figure out how we're going to expedite that. Plus, we're doing a big to-go program for the turkey dinners. We're going to have it earlier on Wednesday. So if you purchase the turkey dinner early on Wednesday, it's a different price than if you purchase it on Thursday, Thanksgiving morning. So we're doing everything we can to facilitate the needs of our guests. And that's the focus.
Let's talk a little bit about your background, your Italian background. Where are you from? And let's back it up even further. Where are your grandparents from? How'd you all get here, in other words?
Okay. So my mother's parents are from Benevento, which is a region outside, a city outside of Naples in the Campania region. And my dad is from, your family's from Benevento, if I'm not mistaken.
Very close by, some family, and the rest of them are from Avellino, San Barbato, also right outside of Naples. Must be
Napolitano,
related. Napolitano, yes.
absolutely. And then my dad's parents are from Montadoro, which is a province of the Calenzetta in Sicily. And my grandfather, my dad's father, came to America with children. His wife passed away. He left his children in Italy, in America, went back to Italy for a few years to find another woman, and then came back and started a new family. So my dad had like 7 children in his family. 4 of them were stepbrothers and sisters, and 3 were actually blood sisters. They are all girls.
Okay, hang on. Did this woman know what she was getting into when she came back
I,
to America? Or did she come here and go, wait a minute, you didn't tell me about this?
I don't know.
Right?
You know what? She was never
Oh my
nice to
gosh.
me, so I'm sure that there
Oh,
was a reason for that.
yeah. Well, you hear stories like that, right? Oh my
Right.
gosh, Frank. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a lot. Um,
Yeah.
so you grew up where? Outside
I grew
of,
up in Pittston, Pennsylvania, which is northeastern corner of Pennsylvania, Luzerne County, and the Wyoming Valley. It's famous right now because of its proximity to Scranton. We
right?
sit
We
in
all
between.
know what's right. We all know what's going on in Scranton, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to have people say, "Where you're from?" And I say, "Well, I'm from near Scranton." They say, "Oh, The Office." The
Yeah.
Office.
Right? I know. And
Oh,
by the way, your Pennsylvania accent's coming out more. When I talked to you a little bit
sorry
about
about
Pennsylvania, I'm hearing it a little bit. So that's very comforting to me because I'm from New Jersey. But there are some famous folks, right, who grew up also in Pittston. Could you
that.
tell us about that? Other than you.
Well, it was we had a famous football player in the 40s that came from Pittston, a guy named Charlie Trippi. And Charlie Trippi honestly grew up with my father. And Charlie ended up finishing second in a Heisman Trophy, went to the University of Georgia. And I believe Charlie is still alive. He lives in Georgia still. And
Okay.
then we have Jimmy Cephalo, who was a famous football player with the Miami Dolphins. He's from Pittston. And we have various other individuals, a gentleman, Russell Buffalino, who recently, he was also from Montadoro, who was recently focused, he was the Joe Pesci character in The Irishman, the Martin
Right.
Scorsese movie. And he resided in Pittston. And then we had the most famous Elvis tribute artist. And of course, it's coal mining country. So both my
Of
grandparents
course.
came from Italy, and worked in the mines. Both passed away with black lung.
Oh, that's so sad. I was going to say, just hearing where they worked, I thought, uh-oh. And you just
Oh, it's
answered my
terrible.
question. You answered my question. But it's a real hard working community, right? I mean, so watching your grandparents work hard, um, being Italian, what kind of, I don't know, what did that leave to you? What kind of impression? You don't know it when you're a kid, right? And you're watching your parents and grandparents working so hard, but it really has an effect on us, right? What would you say?
Well, I tell you, I had a great childhood. We lived in a
Oh,
very small community. My mother's parents we lived next door to my grandmother, my dad's mother. My grandparents lived in a small borough close to Pittston called Yatesville. And we spent a lot of time in Yatesville. And I'm telling you, it was a unbelievable childhood growing up. I mean, I go back to Yatesville. I have relatives, cousins, and such that live close by still. And it is unbelievable. In fact, I amazed my daughters once. We went back to Pittston. My daughter was going to a school, undergrad work in New York, and we went to Pittston. And I took them to Yatesville, and I was standing looking at my grandfather's old house that they sold 40, 50 years ago,
right.
and showing them where my uncles had signed in the cement, right? And this older woman walks up. Now, I hadn't been there in 20, 25 years, 30 years. And this older woman walks up and says, "My God, Frankie." And she says, "Wait right here." And she goes across and gets another woman that was my mother's best friend growing up. And she goes, "Look who's here." Now I'm an adult. And she looks at me, she makes the sign of the cross and goes, "Frankie, I've been thinking about you for years. Where have
Oh
you
my
been?"
gosh.
It was, my daughters looked at me like, this is like a movie. But it was truly a great place to live.
That is how the people are, though, in the community, right? Particularly back east, that first generation who came here, and then, the second generation, very, very close, probably rosary in hand, right? I
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
doubt. And, a little pinch on the cheek. I know, because I grew up with those people. Salt of the earth people. That must have really been an incredible moment for your kids, really.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's a different way of life. I was back for a funeral, and that's when I usually go back, unfortunately. And I drove by the house again with a cousin in the house, a younger cousin. And I said, "Hey, this is where my grandfather used to live." I said, "Pull over, I'm gonna go talk to these people." She said, "Oh, Frankie, no, don't embarrass me." So I walked up to the house and I said to the woman sitting on the porch, I said, "I grew up in this house. My grandfather owned it." She goes, "Oh, well, we haven't owned it very long. We've only been here 42 years. I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "When I was a kid, the guy lived up the street. Shoes used to live up the street." She goes, "Oh, yeah, Shoes, he died. Tarzan, he lived up the street." Guy, we had names for everybody, right?
I know,
Tarzan,
right?
who never wore a shirt, so we nicknamed him Tarzan. "Oh, no, Tarzan died. Beaver died." So I happened to drive by a house that a buddy of mine I used to play baseball with lived. And I knocked on the door, thinking, yeah, there's no way he's going to be there. That was his mother's house. He answers
Oh
the door.
no.
He answers the door, and he looks at me and says, "Mr. California, what are you doing back in our home?" I hadn't seen this guy in 30 years.
Can I say something? What is it about the whole Mr. California thing? Because I get that a lot too. It's like, oh, lefty, what's a California? It's all kind of the same, but it seems like this big vast land going over to California. Do you get that sometimes when you go back? It's like, oh, California.
Yeah, big shot.
You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, the big shot.
The big
But,
shot.
yeah, but I love these stories because it brings you back, but it also becomes a character of who you are. Because as soon as you go back to Pittston, you're Frank Licata from Pittston, because it doesn't leave you, right? So you went to college. How did you end up in California? How did you get here?
Well, we lived in New York for a period of time, and we lived upstate, and it was too cold. So my mother decided that we have kids, we're going to California. I can't stand this weather. My grandfather had passed away, so we ended up in California. My dad was working for the government out of Norton Air Force Base in San Bernardino. So that's how we came. My dad loaded the car, took my youngest brother and drove to California and found a home. My dad found a job. And 2 weeks later, we were on a plane flying to California.
Wow. Wow. That must have been exciting, right? How old were you?
Yeah, it was exciting, but it was a little bit, you know, we went from a place where everyone knew us
Right.
to a place where no one knew us. And I'll never forget my first day in class. I walked in and I said something, and I said, in Pennsylvania, instead of saying mine, we say mayan. Like, this is mayan.
Oh no. Well, people out
This,
here, it's a whole different thing.
yeah.
The
So
Mayan. Yeah.
this kid looks at me and he's got a Southern accent, and he looks at me and starts to make fun of my accent. And I thought, oh man, this is not going to turn out well.
It's like,
This was
oh
a bad
no.
move. But in reality,
Yeah.
you know, it all works out.
You did okay. So where did you grow up then here in California? Where was that?
Well, we lived in San Bernardino for a short time. Then my dad, a year later, we moved to Santa Maria because he was overseeing a project on Vandenberg Air Force Base. And then he got an assignment to oversee a project here in Fullerton, huge aircraft. And he stayed there for many, many years. And we moved to Yorba Linda. And I've been there since. Went to high school there, college there. And now
Nice.
my wife and I still reside in Yorba Linda.
How many kids do you have?
I have two daughters. My oldest is 33, and most recently got her doctorate. She is now a professor. My youngest is a graduate, went to Italy, lived in Italy, worked in Italy, came back, finished her degree. She's an artist and is doing quite well. And she also works in one of our restaurants. So it's pretty exciting.
Nice. Now, from what I understand, you did not study restaurant management in college. You studied because you wanted to be an actor, and you're a funny guy too. So, right?
Well, I was a theater arts major
Right.
in college, and I was doing, it was the early 70s. This was 70, 73, 74, and was almost ready to graduate as a theater arts major. I was working in a restaurant as a waiter. I walked into the restaurant, and my manager looked at me and called me over, and he said, "Hey, Marlon Brando, what are you going to do with your life?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Frankie, you've been working in restaurants forever. You're going to be a superstar actor? I don't think so. Change your degree, go to Cal Poly, and get a hotel and restaurant." So I thought I ended up in Cal Poly. And the rest,
as they say,
is a nightmare. What a mistake.
Oh, no. Yeah, right. I'd say that probably you took your theatrics with you, and that's why you are such a terrific person and manager to work for, right? You're understanding, you're great with, come on, you're great with customers, you're great with the people you work with. What's the first thing you told me when we started the podcast? Why is Il Fornaio so great? The people. So my dad, Anthony Zara, told me it starts at the top. So you're the top. So you must be very good for the people that you work with. So let's remember that too. So that's pretty tremendous, right? So what do you say to that? Nothing. Now you could just go home.
Absolutely. You're the boss on this thing.
Right? So you initially, though, you worked for El Torito. Is that correct? It was one of your first jobs in the restaurant business? Yeah.
Ironically enough, my first day in Cal Poly Pomona, I took Restaurant 101. And a gentleman walks in and introduces himself, and he was the vice president of operation for El Torito. And my mother said, before I came home, "Come home with a job too." So ironically enough, this guy was looking for management personnel. So I interviewed with and he put me through a program while I was in college, facilitating my prerequisite of working in a restaurant while I was going to school. And I never really went into management and finally I was a bartender, stayed there for a long time, and then became a manager in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm. And that place was real good to you. You were telling me, right? El Torito.
You know what? I learned a lot, and I had some great mentors. And ironically enough, our chairman of the board and our president of Il Fornaio, people that I work with on a daily basis, are both El Torito ex-employees. So we all kind of grew together. And when the chairman of the board, who was then the CEO president, came to Il Fornaio, he brought many of us from the old days at El Torito, and I was lucky enough to be one of those people.
So how long have you been with Il Fornaio, and what kind of changes do you make as VP of operations? It's a big job.
Well, I've been 24 years with the company, and
wow.
I've been very, very lucky in the sense that the company is follows exactly the beliefs that I follow, in that it's all about hospitality, it's all about guests, and it's all about our people. And that has been the premise of what we do. It's about driving sales and keeping an environment of employees that wants to stay. And Deborah, I haven't had a single problem bringing people back during this pandemic.
That says a lot.
It's just really amazing. And we are so lucky to have the people doing what they're doing now, because it is so different than what the norm used to be.
Right.
And a day in the life of a manager of a restaurant is much different now than it was pre-pandemic. And kudos to these guys, can do it every day and deal with the nonsense and the craziness of it all.
Right. You're open, you're closed, you're open, you're closed, outdoor, indoor. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like you just have to be ready to pivot, I guess, right?
Precisely. Yeah, you're shooting from the hip all day long. And hey, that's what makes it work. I mean, and you know, we measure our social media. Our social media is still high. So whatever we're doing, we're still making certain that that guest is enjoying the concept and their experience.
Oh, when we first moved again to California, we lived within walking distance of the Il Fornaio in Beverly Hills. We don't live there anymore, but that's where we lived when we first landed here. We would go there like almost every day, right? We didn't even have kids, and it was convenient. It was easy, but there were lots of restaurants, clearly Italian ones, in that neighborhood. It was always our go-to. And to your point, the people were so friendly and lovely, but I really do love the food. Is there maybe a favorite that's a staple that people always order, that go to Il Fornaio for, that you're so well known for?
Well, you know, we have great pastas, we have great pizzas. Our chicken dishes, the Polo Toscano is a popular dish.
The best. Yeah.
We have a seafood pasta, linguine macchiato, that is a phenomenal dish, and has been on the menu for so many years. And if we ever try to take it off, we get more complaints than I can tell you.
Right.
And so we're constantly trying to change the concept and bring new things in, just to keep it exciting, because, you know, to be in the ball game, you've got to be able to keep everyone happy, from the millennials to the boomers, and that's our goal. I mean, we have to so that everyone wants to have a piece of Il Fornaio, and that's what we're trying to do with the Osteria.
You know, we're doing the Osteria is in Santa Monica, right?
We haven't opened it yet.
Right, it's going to be opening soon, right?
2021, yes.
2021. How's that going to be different than other Il Fornaios?
It's a smaller footprint. It's more 3,500 square feet. It will be a lot less formal in the dining.
Right.
We'll still have service. We'll still have bar. We'll have a bar program, cocktail program. All of our pastas will be fresh made, and it'll be more of a meet and greet type of a place, and less of no tablecloths, no formal, just more of a place to hang out and be in, with a great atmosphere of fun and quality food. But we're not going to lose that hospitality touch.
Nope, that clearly is like number one. Have you been down to our San Pedro, Little Italy of Los Angeles district? It's charming, it's lovely, and I know we'd love to get an Il Fornaio down there eventually.
I told my wife that after we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I said we've got to spend some time and get down there, because we really enjoy when I go to Coronado. I'll many times just drive through the Little Italy there on India Street in San Diego, and if it's anything like that, I'm sure it's just going to be a spectacular place.
It's charming, and it's still in development. You know, it's fairly new, and we only just unleashed it a year ago, last October, and then boom, COVID hit. But there's lots of little mom and pop restaurants there. We've got a piazza that we're developing. It's really lovely, and it's right there on the waterfront, which is really spectacular. So Yeah, you've got to come down there. That would be
Yeah.
actually a lot of
Yeah.
fun too. So, any parting words that you'd like people to know who are going to be visiting Il Fornaio, or anything you'd like to say to our audience?
No, we're just excited to be back in business again after a long layoff from March until we start to open in June again. And, you know, it's all about the guest, it's all about our people, and it's all about quality cuisine, quality food, and an atmosphere of total hospitality. And if
Yeah,
it's not
and
that
it's
way, you can call me at my phone number and I will make certain that that is corrected.
do you respond to all of your social media? Do you have any personal social media, or is it all Il Fornaio?
Well, we have Il Fornaio, and we have a company now that helps us with that because we get so much of it. But
Yeah.
every morning I get a list of social media comments in all of our restaurants. So I
Oh,
follow up with
beautiful.
them. And if I feel I need to respond or my general manager needs to respond, we immediately do so. So many, many times I'm talking to guests that might have had a bad experience, might not have gotten what they wanted, but our focus is to get people to come back. I mean, you walk
Yeah.
out the door and there's 30 restaurants looking at you. And, you know, the difference that we want to see is the reason why they choose El Fornaio is the people that they come to see. And that's what
I
makes,
come, go ahead.
well, that's what makes our brand, I think, what it's been.
Well, I come back, and in fact, I'm looking forward to going back because I know I'm going to be your guest. That pounded chicken with spinach is just a must for me. I love it. I mean, I'm looking forward
Whatever
to
you,
having that again.
well, you know, I spoke to my chef yesterday about this and I said, Deborah needs to come back here. He said, Frankie, he's from Naples. And he said, tell her to come hungry and not look at the menu. I'm going to cook for her. So
It's a deal. But will you join us, you and your wife?
I
That would be
would,
a lot of fun.
I would happily do so. It would be a
That'd be
pleasure,
fun.
an honor.
Okay, let's make that happen. So I'm just very excited to have you on. You know, you've done a phenomenal job with Il Fornaio, you know, having it grow, watch it grow, um, getting through the pandemic. And as you said, you're all about the service and the people who work there. So I applaud you for that. You know, that's what my dad used to say too. So thank you so much. And thanks for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. You've been traveling around. So I appreciate it. We all appreciate it.
Well, I
So
appreciate
thanks.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Deborah.
yeah, thanks everybody for joining us for Little Italy, a Los Angeles podcast. Please check us out down in Little Italy at the San Pedro district. Beautiful weather. You could just sort of walk, you know, around the waterfront and check us out. Again, we're still developing. Go to a local Il Fornaio restaurant. There's 17 of them here in California, 2 others in Vegas. So check them out. And then, you know, right over to Frank because he'll personally respond back to you. Um, and I appreciate that. So you could find us, everybody, on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts too. So look us up. I appreciate you joining us. My name is Deborah Zara Kobylt, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.